Texas criminal defense lawyers. And first thing I'd like to do, Emmett, is if you just give us a little background history. I know that you were born and raised in Houston, but you ended up in Uvalde, so I'd like to hear how that happened.
It was an unusual deal. I was born and raised in Houston, grew up out in Bel Air, Texas, when Bel Air was the end of the line on the west side. And I worked at the title insurance company where my dad was manager. And growing up, you know, from office boy up, I thought I would wind up in the title insurance business. And therefore I went to law school, not dreaming that I would be a lawyer, but that I would know how to examine land titles and deal with title insurance. Somewhere along the way, my mother passed away way too early when she was 50 years old. And that had a tremendous impact on my dad. And all of a sudden the title insurance prospect was dimming. And during the time he ran that title company, he took customers deer hunting to Uvalde, Texas, mortgage bankers, realtors. And I would come with him, and we'd drive all the way to Uvalde on the old Highway 90 before I-10 existed, stay at the Kincaid Hotel and go shoot a deer. And so therefore I knew where Uvalde was.
That's how you found Uvalde.
And at this pivotal point in my life when I thought maybe I was not going to stay in Houston, I just pondered what it might be like to live in a small town. Drove to Uvalde and rattled around, and there was one law firm essentially in town, and they had all the practice. And they hired me because they knew I knew how to examine land titles. Once I landed there, in those days, if they had any kind of case that was going to court, they didn't go to court. They would hire somebody from San Antonio to come out and try the case.
So out-of-town attorney.
Right. I don't know whether they just didn't like trial work or were scared of it or whatever, but they'd hire somebody in San Antonio. Well, there I was now,
Yes.
new lawyer in town. And so they started sending me. If you go over and gets his head torn off, it's his and not ours.
Yes, yes.
But it dawned on me in that process that in the courtroom was really where I felt like I was being a lawyer. And it was fulfilling for that reason. And
Changed your direction completely.
All because Helen Harris got cancer and died too young.
Yes, that's for your mother. And ended up having a situation where instead of being an office attorney, you ended up being a trial attorney.
Yes.
So how did you end up doing, did you then take their criminal cases?
I did, and some of their civil stuff as well. But as I did those things, it gradually dawned on me that the criminal defense was where I really felt like I made a difference, that it mattered.
Yes, that it was rewarding work that you ended up doing.
Civil stuff, money at stake, property at stake, but nobody's life or liberty is at stake. And besides that, I also formed the opinion that family law was a much more dangerous courtroom to be in than a criminal docket.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's a funny story. Travis County put their metal detectors in their family courts first, way before the criminals.
I've told them in Uvalde, you're wasting it today. Get it up there on the family.
That's right. Those are the ones where things are going to come unglued. And so I was looking up because we were talking about how long you've been a lawyer. It looks like you graduated from the University of Houston Law School in 1961. And so that tells me you've been a lawyer for 54 years?
I guess so, yeah.
When you were sworn in. And so I did a little research, and all the other past presidents are about 20 to 25 years that they've been practicing. Charlie Butts had been practicing for 38, but I think you get the gold star for having been practicing for 54 years when you were sworn in.
Well, I was licensed that long, but I didn't really start going to court and being a lawyer that quick. We moved to Uvalde in 1968, so kind of from that point forward.
It's when you've been doing your trial work.
Right.
So tell me a little bit about your family.
Married to a dandy little girl named Paulette Harris, who I met and married in Houston. We had two sons, Ronnie and Kurt. each of them live in San Antonio now. Ronnie works for AT&T in engineering, and Kurt works for Cisco Systems, a communications outfit. They both told me what they do, and I don't know what they do. It's just over my head.
And so do you have some memorable cases there from Uvalde that you'd like to tell us about?
One, I suppose, ought to be on that list is a young man named Gilbert Alejandro. He was charged with rape of a 50-year-old woman in Uvalde back in 1990. When he went to trial in 1990, he said he didn't do it. 1990 was kind of the beginning of the DNA years. It was, at least in that part of the world, it was something newfangled. And they asked if he could give a DNA sample that they could test with samples they got from the victim. The victim, by the way, didn't get a good look at her attacker. She came home, jumped out from behind the door, threw a pillow over her face. All the bad stuff happened, and she never did really say anything except some kind of cap and a gray shirt. Gilbert said, "It wasn't me, it wasn't her, I didn't do that. What's this business about DNA?" I said, "Well, that's a scientific test that they do to determine whether or not there's an indication that you may be guilty." He said, "Give them a sample." "I'll give them a sample because I wasn't there. Because it must show that I'm innocent. I don't know how that works, but it must show that I'm innocent because I know I am." And so we did. And in those days, there was not, well, there still isn't a medical examiner's office in Uvalde. That work is farmed out to San Antonio, Bexar County Medical Examiner's Office, in whose hands the samples wound up in the hands of a gentleman named Fred Zane, Z-A-I-N, Fred Zane. And the report came back that it was a match. He was absolutely sure that it was a match. I didn't know
Nobody knew
nearly
then.
all I needed to know about DNA, but I had this, quote, expert who said he had done the test, said that the test proved conclusively that Gilbert was the man. I thought he was pompous, arrogant, but the jury loved him.
You went to trial anyway?
Went to trial. Really didn't have any choice, given the state's attitude. Went to trial. Zane testified it was a match. By God, it's 99.99% sure. I'm positive.
That,
Science says your client Gilbert is.
and he was a fantastic witness for the state and in a large number of cases.
Many cases. What I didn't know on that day
Nobody knew then.
was that he was lying his you-know-what of. The test, in fact, concluded otherwise, would have exonerated Gilbert. The jury loved him. He was so sure of himself unapologetically that the only thing I knew how to do in cross was say, well, I understand what you're saying, that this science is bulletproof and unimpeachable, and that the great minds of our day say that. But isn't it true, Mr. Zane, that at one time the big brains, the great minds of our world said with this assurance that you've given this jury today that the world's flat. If you sail the edge, you fall off. That was the big brain guys. A lot of wrinkles in the brain. Science was sure. Well, they were wrong, but I'm not. I'm right. And I'm sure it is. The only other question I asked that turned out to be interesting is I said, well, okay, you're sure today. I hear that. What are you going to feel like if, I don't know, 4 years from now, when you figure out the science was wrong? I still didn't know the guy was a perjurer par excellence. How do you think you'd feel 4 years from now if you found out the science wasn't all that dependable? Well, it's not going to happen. As it turned out, the jury found my client guilty. He went off to prison. Spent 4 years there. And 4 years later, we discovered that Fred Zane had been lying like a rug in my trial, and many others. He started it over in West Virginia somewhere,
Where
and
he was
then
originally from.
wound up here. I was able, therefore, to get Gilbert returned to Uvalde. By that time, the district attorney's office had changed hands, and the then DA looked at it and said, sure, he's got a new trial coming, we'll have that, and I moved to dismiss, and he dismissed the
Oh,
case.
that's fantastic. Did they have stuff to retest? Was it a
No.
retest of the DNA?
No.
No, it was just the
Well, they went
fact
back
that
and
the
found
resident
out that the testing was done, and the representative of the results was a liar.
was a liar, that's right. And many times he did not even conduct the test.
I don't think he did these, probably.
That's what they found out is he just completely fabricated. Whatever the government told them, that's what.
I saw another case where I wasn't involved, but he was talking about a scientific process called pyrolysis, where they heat fibers and things under tremendous heat, and they figure out whether this fiber came from this rug or whatever. And he testified about doing pyrolysis in the Bexar County Medical Examiner's office. They didn't even have the equipment.
Wow.
It didn't exist, at least then.
Right. And he was subsequently indicted for some of this.
He was indicted and escaped eventually because the statute of limitations had saved his backside.
Right.
He moved off, I heard, to Florida and got cancer and died. I did not go to his funeral.
No. I know you also have a life outside of TCDLA. You're very active in your church, and there's few people may know that, as I do, that you sing in the choir.
I do. I sing. I grew up a little Baptist kid, and see, you know, if you could carry a tune, you wound up in the junior choir. And I've been singing in choirs ever since.
And in your church in Uvalde.
I'm a choir and a baritone in the choir at Uvalde United Methodist Church.
And how long have you done that?
That place, that choir,
Mhm.
10 years now, probably.
That is fantastic. So how did you get involved with Texas Criminal Defense Lawyers?
Probably more, if I picked a single name, it'd have to be Cynthia Orr.
From San Antonio.
From San Antonio. Cynthia and Jerry Goldstein in 1994, when I had my Fred Zane
Yes.
deal going, they had some Fred Zane cases. And I would see her at seminars. I'd come to the CLE that we went on, and I would see her, and we had something in common and some communication because of that. And she encouraged me to get more involved in TCDLA than simply going to the seminar.
I think Stan Snyder ended up on 60 Minutes about Fred Zane.
Mm-hmm.
And he was at that time really active in Texas Criminal. So that's sort of what drew you into it.
It did.
What have been your experiences with TCDLA? Anything remarkable that you want to talk about?
Yes, because of Cynthia, I got involved, and then at some point I got appointed or elected to the board of directors. And my point is going to be what I found about TCDLA. And take a picture. I'm in Uvalde, Texas,
Yes.
a town of about 14,000. I'm a nondescript, everyday, at best, mediocre lawyer.
Not true, but
But somehow I get on the board of directors. Well, there was a board of directors meeting in Rudosa one time, at Dan Hurley's mother's place. It was the first time I had occasion to go to a board meeting. I don't remember how we wound up in Rudosa. But we're sitting around, and I'm just being quiet, trying not to make a fool of myself because I don't have a clue about what I really should be doing. And they were talking about things that they might look at to increase membership. And I listened for a while, and I remembered from Uvalde, I was near Uvalde in that area, people say, you know, all those seminars in Dallas or Houston or San
all the
Antonio,
big seminars.
expensive,
the big city.
travel on it. I wish they weren't always in the big cities. And so there was a pause, and I said, I hear people saying that from my neck of the woods. Maybe we could think about perhaps having some seminars in smaller towns. And what I thought would happen would be somebody would say, interesting, next item. That's not what happened.
No.
when I paused and thought that was going to occur, I believe Hurley spoke up first. Dan Hurley said, Emmett Harris, I'll come to U Valley and speak. David Bosworth said, I'll come to U Valley, Emmett. Mike High School said, I'll come to U Valley, Emmett. Randy Wilson was there.
Yes, yes.
All of a sudden, I had 4 sitting or past presidents of this organization who were willing to take their time to drive to Uvalde to speak at a seminar.
Yes.
Well, the next thing I did, I had a heart attack. What am I going to do now
You have to put on the seminar.
if they show up and there's 3 people sitting? But that taught me a lot about this association. And certainly the fact that I have emerged temporarily as president says to those who might see us as too big and too metropolitan or too sophisticated or elevated, they're just wrong. It's an organization that we even had some speakers come and speak at Comstock, Texas.
That's right, that's right. Because then it must have been through your impetus that TDCLEI started putting on lots of seminars in small towns, Waco.
Through our CDLP group,
Yes.
we now go to smaller towns.
And tremendous number of seminars in a very big state. But a lot of lawyers live in those areas that were being underserved, which I think is probably the point of having you involved.
Well,
so that we
I don't
can
take credit for
understand
that. I don't take credit for that. The reaching out were those men who said they'll come appear there.
And so that's a fantastic. In your year as president, you had some issues with some groups, some specialty groups. And so you spent a lot of time sort of bringing back everybody into the fold. And it was absolutely a blessing that you were our president during this time, because I sure felt like there could have been a lot of splintering. Did you want to talk a little bit about your year as president?
It turned out differently than I had anticipated. One of my dreams, things I would try to accomplish during my year, I had this notion that we ought to put on a seminar just on storytelling.
Yes.
It's occurred to me over the years that that's where it really comes down to the rubber meeting the road. And I would hear somebody like Tyler Moncrief, who gets up at trial college and just hypnotizes the room. And all the great storytellers that we have, and we hear them, and we're amazed at how they do it. But we go home thinking, I don't know how he did that. I know the impact was huge, but I wonder mechanically or physically, how did he do that? And so I had this project, so I have a storytelling seminar created. We did have a speaker here yesterday.
Excellent, excellent speaker.
But along came, for lack of a better set of words, the DWI wars.
Yes.
There are in Texas people who do nothing but DWI. And there are groups of them who think not highly but lowly of each other, and they pretty much compete for attention and attendance and so on. So there, it just developed that there was a big fuss among them. They reminded me at one point of the scene in Independence Day. Remember when the aliens come?
Yes.
And they captured this one alien alive, and the President of the United States is saying, maybe we can do something. What do you want us to do? And the alien says, die.
That's the attitude.
It wasn't quite that bad, but it was pretty big. We had some contentious meetings, and we weathered that storm in Texas. Criminal defense lawyers are, as our theme of this seminar, united and standing.
Yes, we
And
did.
that's not what was on me.
That you don't.
Although I did get a wonderful compliment from Ed Millett. He sat in on one of these contentious meetings, and at the end of it, he said, "You're a pretty good mensch." I didn't know what that was. And it was a Yiddish word.
Okay.
I looked it up, and it's sort of a calming, willing to listen, peacemaker,
Absolutely what was
diplomatic
needed.
short.
That's what I felt like.
So I didn't know whether I was doing any good or not, but Ed Millett said I was a good man.
Good, and perfect. It's perfect because we absolutely needed it to that we are a big enough tent
Mm-hmm.
to bring everybody in
Absolutely.
and not be exclusive.
No.
And so what you have done is, through this year, is bring all those people back into the tent. And also just the fact that you are from a small town, that we really do recognize that's the day in, day out, hard nuts and bolts of trying cases is
Mhm.
probably being done in a lot of the small towns.
A lot of times. People all over the state of Texas, courtrooms, great and small, are out there doing it every day. You know, it's just a fluke that I ever wound up in TCDO.
Well, we're
But-
sure lucky you
But
did
one of
that.
the great privileges of my life.
Well, that is just a fantastic story. Anything else that you'd like to say about your?
Wait, let me say one other thing. I don't know whether in these interviews you ask about who has influenced you the most as a trial lawyer.
I should ask you.
If you wanted me to answer that question, it would be two people, neither of whom, well, one of whom was not a lawyer, and the other of whom was a fictional lawyer. We have lectures about humanizing our clients. How do you humanize this person to a jury so that, God willing, they'll treat them as a human? And we talk about that a lot. Generally, we're talking about humanizing that person to a jury. In order to do that, they got to first be a human to us. And we've got to be able to look through the god-awful facts and conduct in some cases, and yet see some humanity in there. Okay, so who was an example of that to me? The first one is Jim Harris, my father. My father's not a lawyer, he worked at a title company. And we weren't country club people, but the title company bought us a membership in Lakeside Country Club. Fine golf courses. I would go with him out there. He took customers out there to entertain them. And I would go out there with him. And in those days, this is in like the middle 50s. In those days, there were caddies. The electric golf cart hadn't come along yet.
Right.
There were caddies at snazzy golf courses. And those caddies were all black. They wore the white coveralls like you've seen over the years at Augusta. And I began to notice that when Jim Harris got out of the car and started over the clubhouse, these guys, caddies, lit up. They were glad to see him. They were all smiles. And it wasn't because he was tipping big or anything else, but he'd stop and he'd talk to them.
Yes.
You know where they're going to wind up on his back that day? He stopped talking. They were his friends.
Yes.
Notwithstanding, they were black and they were caddies and their white coveralls and a total golf bag. He treated them just like he treated the people in the clubhouse. I've seen him call him Jimmy, stand out in the fairway. If nobody was listening, he'd say, Jimmy, I think this is a 7-iron. Got a little wind in the face. Jimmy, I did a 7.
Wow.
He treated everybody with dignity, regardless of their station.
And has a huge impact on his children who see this.
Yeah. The other example I want to cite is good old Atticus Finch. My gosh, we all worship him, but he had that knack. A fictional character, sure, but if you watch him in that movie, at the end when Jim has been attacked and he's laying in bed and they're in the room and the doctor's with Jim, over behind that door in the shadows is Boo Radley, the neighborhood pariah that all the kids were afraid of. Nobody saw him. The spooky Boo Radley. And I know you remember Scout looks up, the little girl looks up and sees him and says, "Hi, Boo." Atticus gets ready to introduce him. He doesn't say Boo. He says, "Scout, Mr. Arthur Radley." He accorded him the same dignity and station as anybody else. And I think it's important for us to do that with the human beings around us.
And who we represent.
Oh yeah, that we represent, and whether they hired us for $8 zillion or whether they were appointed. If you got that knack, then you can explain to that jury, this is not Boo, this is Mr. Arthur Radley.
That is so true. And been absolutely my privilege to do this. I want to make sure, was there anything else you wanted to tell us? I am so pleased that you asked me. As I said, I've watched many presidents come and go from TCDLA, and you are a miracle, and I want to tell you how much we appreciate all the hard work that you did to bring all those factions back together, because we all have the same purpose, and you sure reminded them of that. So I want to tell you thank you from the bottom of my heart.
That is almost embarrassing to me to hear that. I just don't feel worthy, but I do appreciate what you said.
You are. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Betty.